All right, welcome. So today's video is how to use semen retention athletically. So we're going to be specifically talking about the implications for an athlete when it comes to semen retention, why it's important to utilize semen retention as an athlete, what you can actually benefit by using semen retention as an athlete. So what are the actual reasons you might want to use semen retention if you're an athlete and you want to take your sport to the next level, what tools you can use to apply semen retention specifically to your own sport, and just a few extra tools that'll help you on the journey and help you to implement this stuff at the end. So before we get started, I want to quickly talk about my journey on semen retention. When I started semen retention, I was probably about 15 when I first discovered it. And obviously being a young teenager, I had all types of different issues, all types of different problems mentally. School became difficult as I got older because I started to realize how much more I could be doing with my time. And so I was always kind of using different things to cope with this. One of my coping mechanisms was working on my business in school, and I also had coping mechanisms like smoking and pornography and all of the negative vices, but there were also some positive vices. But the main thing was I knew that I needed to find ways to improve my life. I knew I needed to find ways to optimize my performance. I knew I needed to find ways to increase my productivity. And that's because I felt like as a 15-year-old kid, I needed to be extremely successful, which I do believe was a good aspiration. However, I thought I needed to be extremely successful at 15, 16 years old. And to do this, I either had to leave school and quit school, which I didn't really want to do, or I had to find ways to use that small block of time I had after school every day as productively as possible and to optimize how much output I could get in that short block of time. And so one of the main tools that I discovered for this was actually semen retention. I realized that porn was a major blocker for dopamine, was a major it's essentially a poison. It's essentially a toxin for the brain, for the body, for the soul, for everything, right? But one of the main things was dopamine. The way that it influences dopamine was exactly why I couldn't be more productive in the moment, right? Because I didn't have enough dopamine to be able to focus in on the work because, I'm tired after school and there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the day. And so that tiredness caused me to seek just what would be regular stimulation for most people, which is just pleasure and trying to find ways to fill the void, right? Drugs, porn, junk food, all of these are very common vices, very common outlets for the same problem. So the conclusion I ended up coming to was that I needed to quit. I needed to quit porn, I needed to quit weed, I needed to quit all of this shit, leave it all behind completely, and allow myself to only and totally focus on my business, my sports, and just developing overall as a person. So my main focus was self-improvement, developing myself as an athlete, developing in my sport, and building my business. And so when I turned 17, I discovered, I struggled with porn and semen retention and trying to get onto this track for about 2 years. Then when I was 17, I finally discovered what I call my master key, or the secret. The thing that finally helped me implement it fully, which was sexual transmutation. A lot of the people I had listened to did not understand sexual transmutation at its core. They understood the idea of reducing pornography, not releasing the semen, and that had a benefit of energy and focus, but it was only a fraction of the benefit that you were able to receive if you learned how to transmute your sexual energy, right? So instead of repressing my sexual energy, I learned how to work with it and transmute it and turn it into creative power, creative potential for anything that I was pursuing, which extended to my sport. I went from having never played soccer in my entire life, except like, I think I was like 6 or 7. I played a couple years of, ASO soccer, but I had never really played soccer, at least after like modified and JV and varsity. So I jumped on the varsity team my last year. And obviously I didn't play so much. I had never played the sport before, but over the course of that year, I ended up meeting a lot of people who played soccer. I had been training on my own for an entire summer, and I was just focusing on the practices and training and learning the sport and building the skills. And I had gotten to a point where I was able to not only compete, but I was significantly better than a lot of my peers. A lot of these people that I had known that were playing soccer almost their whole lives. And for me, this was a major jump to go from never playing the sport to being able to compete with some of the people who'd been playing it their whole lives, right? And I believe that this is completely due to my sexual transmutation and my semen retention journey, because I was able to apply that energy to my sport, to developing myself as an athlete. I was able to apply the focus to be able to not lose my attention and keep it fixated on developing. I was able to have such consistency and such effort and energy, and persistent effort and energy, that I was able to just continuously keep progressing. And so this is why I say that semen retention for an athlete is such a key, because not only that, right? I learned how to play soccer in a year, but a year later, I'm now developing myself as a snowboarder, and I'm working on going pro as a professional snowboarder, going pro as a snowboarder, I guess you could say. But I've developed myself in ways that I didn't even think possible before. I've gotten to a level that, I thought would take me years to build, but it took me a few months, right? A few months of snowboarding, and I went from having basically no tricks to learning my 360s, learning how to grab all of the grabs on my snowboard, learning a bunch of different types of shifties, tons of different buttering tricks. I became very, very skilled at carving. And I've built myself up in ways that I wouldn't have had access to without this process, without this gift of sexual energy and sexual transmutation. And so these are things that I want to give to you, right? You may not understand the snowboarding analogy, but you may understand the soccer transformation, right? And the thing is, it applies to every area of your life as well. So like, not only am I increasing in my sport, but I'm also getting better with my business, right? I'm being able to teach things that I didn't think my brain would have access to, right? Like, this is knowledge that I didn't think I could comprehend before. But now I understand it as if it's second nature, right? And so all of the things I teach within this YouTube channel are things that I've learned and developed through my years of practicing both semen retention and just being on a self-improvement journey, a self-development journey, because you're able to learn much more on semen retention as well. You're able to apply knowledge much differently on semen retention. So with the two together, you're able to create a real wealth of wisdom, a real wealth of knowledge that can be accessed and used for a lot of different things. And so that is what I want to teach you guys today, is specifically how to apply this skill, this gift of sexual transmutation to your sport and how to develop yourself athletically. Like I said, I've gone from basically nowhere, right? Basically not being an athlete at all, right? My entire life just being lazy, playing video games, right? Watching TV, eating junk food, to developing myself to what I consider at least a fit and athletic person, right? Someone who has genuine skills that some people don't have, right? And that's valuable, because no matter what you're doing, you want to be able to develop skills that not everybody can develop. And the way that you get this advantage is by doing things that other people aren't capable of doing. And semen retention is one of those things that not a lot of people can actually do fully, truly. But if you can, it is such an advantage. It sets you apart in such a way that you cannot compare it to anything else. And that in and of itself is why it's such a powerful practice. So now we're going to get into the actual part of the video. So for those of you who want direct help transforming your lives through self-improvement, or if you just want access to courses and knowledge on how to transform your life, all of the tools that I use to optimize my productivity, make more progress in my life, and make sure that I'm working towards my goals in a consistent and effective, efficient fashion, you guys can go ahead and go down to my Instagram, which is the first link in the description. Sorry, I lost the word for a second. The first link in the description is my Instagram. You guys can send me a DM. I'm about to launch a new product called the Academy of Self-Mastery, which is going to be a full spectrum program that will teach you exactly how to go from 0 to 100 on your self-improvement journey. So if that's something you guys are interested in, you can go ahead and DM me and ask for early access to the program, in which I will give you the link as soon as the program goes live, and you will be the first allowed to join, right? So before I even announce the program and publicly on YouTube, I will make sure that everybody who requested early access will be able to get into the program. And early access has some benefits, like you'll get it in a much lower price, and that is something that will last no matter how much I increase the price. So if you get in now, you'll keep your price no matter how much more I add to the program and how much I increase the price, which is cool, which is a nice little advantage. And then if you guys want one-on-one coaching for me to help you transform your lives through self-improvement, create a routine and a structure so that you can optimize for your goals and make sure that you're progressing towards your goals, you can go down to the same link, go to my Instagram, DM me, and you can ask for my one-on-one coaching program, and I will gauge whether or not you're a fit for the program. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. How semen retention can make you an elite athlete. The power of semen retention and athletic performance. So semen retention itself is something that will boost your performance in most, if not all, areas of life. You will have increased levels of energy, increased levels of adaptivity, or adaptability rather, not adaptivity. So adaptability, energy, and focus. These three things together make it very, very easy to make a lot of progress in certain areas of life. And it also makes it very easy to increase your performance to an elite level. That's why I said why it can make you an elite athlete. If you focus on building yourself as an athlete while practicing semen retention, you can develop yourself to the elite level over time. The same way Mike Tyson's a great example of this, but Mike Tyson did semen retention for, I believe, 6 years, leading up to and during his main streak as a fighter. And I don't know a lot of details about his exact practice and what he did specifically, but I know he practiced semen retention, and I also know that was a main contributor to why he was so dominant in the ring, because he wasn't just better than everybody else. He wasn't just stronger than everybody else. He was a significantly more dominant athlete than most other people he would fight against, right? So that's why you see these clips of him knocking people out in one punch, basically, just shredding through people, wrecking people. And these aren't just random people either. These are also professional athletes. These are also elite level athletes who've trained their entire lives, developed their skills their entire lives, and become a strong athlete, considerably strong athlete, yet somehow he's just washing all of them, right? And the difference is because when you are on semen retention, the amount of power that you contain, the amount of potential that you contain actually multiplies. It compounds, right? It becomes 10-fold, 100-fold, right? Depending on how long you practice this and how good you can get at sexual transmutation, you can increase your output 100-fold, right? Meaning you can literally contain the strength of 100 men or 1,000 men if you develop this over time, right? If you maintain semen retention over time. And a lot of people think that semen retention is like a temporary practice. It's not. It's a lifetime practice. If you truly want to receive the benefits of it, it's a lifelong practice. And, that doesn't mean we suppress the sexual urge either. That does not mean we go about our lives, being afraid of women for men and being afraid of the idea of sex, right? Sexuality is this gift that I'm trying to teach you how to use, right? And so to suppress the sexuality, we don't even get to access the gifts of sexual transmutation, right? So learning how to work with your sexual energy instead of suppressing it is how you will receive these benefits. So this is a lifelong practice, but there are practices that will allow you to have relationships with women, sexual relationships with women. There are practices that will allow you to maintain a calm and relaxed state even with an abundance of sexual energy. Most people think this is impossible because of the lust that builds in the background. But again, that lust builds in the background because of suppression of the energy, right? Not truly being able to transmute that energy. With transmutation, however, you will feel that this is the state you want to live in and be in at all times, because it is the optimized human state, right? It is the optimal state for human beings. To be in a state of arousal is the word, but it is arousal of the nervous system. It is attentiveness, awareness, presence, and being potent in your energy, right? Having powerful, potent energy that is persistently penetrating through everything that you're being and doing. So when you are in a room and you're on semen retention, your energy will penetrate through the energies of everybody else because it is so much more powerful, so much more potent. And the real state of human beings is to have multiple humans with this level of energy, in the same area, in the same environment. And what happens with that is this energy will bounce off each other, and these two people will raise each other's energy over time. And so that's how humans are meant to live. That's why humans are social creatures, right? We can refine and create more of each other's energy. Essentially, when we bounce ideas off each other is a good example. When you have somebody, a friend who thinks similarly to you, and you bounce ideas back and forth, you refine that idea into a better idea than it was originally, right? And the same goes for energy, the same goes for people, right? A strong and masculine man spending time with another strong masculine man, they will polish and sharpen each other's wit and energy and strength and power, right? So they will strengthen and sharpen each other, right? They will refine each other's energy into something that is the most potent it can be, right? This is why it's good to have the right kinds of people by your side, because these people will either help you sharpen your sword or they will purposefully dull it for you, right? And there are plenty of people out there who will try to dull your sword as well, right? They will try to strip energy from you. So this semen retention, this powerful energy that you contain when you practice and utilize sexual transmutation with this practice, it is something that needs to be protected. It is something that needs to be cultivated. It is something that can be used positively, but it can also be used negatively, right? And we see this a lot in the perversion of sexual energy, right? The reason why humanity is where it is because of the perversion of sexual energy, right? The reason why humanity is in a dire state is because of the perversion of sexual energy. So therefore, this energy is very, very important, very powerful, very potent, and we need to learn how to manage and control it and direct it correctly, right? And one of the outlets that we can use for this energy is athletic performance. If our goal or our purpose is to be an athlete, right? If our main goal in life right now is to be an athlete, a professional athlete, or any type of athlete, semen retention can be the tool that will get you there. If you apply your energy, time, and attention to your sport and you focus it, fixate it, while practicing semen retention, you will amplify the effects that you have. You will amplify the results that you're able to receive. So the power of SR and progress is just insane. Like the amount of progress that you can make just because you are practicing semen retention in the background is insane. And this is something like I might, most people might be thinking like I'm just talking it up because it's, I'm selling you something or whatever. By the way, I'm not selling you anything that teaches you about sexual transmutation. So there is that. I will probably add a sexual transmutation course to the program though. But as of now, there is no sexual transmutation course in the program. So I'm not selling you anything. I'm genuinely this passionate about the practice because it's genuinely this good, right? But you have to do it yourself. You have to experience it for yourself to understand what I'm talking about. But semen retention will rapidly increase the rate at which you can progress in something, to the degree that most of the time, each repetition, you will notice changes. You will notice yourself getting better and better at the thing. I noticed when I started learning how to do corks on the trampoline, which is a snowboarding trick. Not important what it is, but I was learning corks on the trampoline when I was about 14. And I remember it was very, very difficult because it was just repetition after repetition, and I almost felt like I was getting worse because obviously I'm like working my hardest and I'm getting tired. Then I'd come back out the next day and I'm a little bit better at it. I kind of get it now. Okay, I work on it. The next day I come back out, I'm a little bit better. This is how progress is normally, right? This is how progress normally works for most people. However, on semen retention, it's from repetition to repetition, not day to day, right? Each repetition, I can make those small adjustments, those small changes consciously in order to keep progressing and keep getting better. And then by practicing and getting repetitions in of the right trick, right, the right kind of repetitions, then the next day I come out and now my natural state is the perfect repetition I had yesterday, right? So like my default, the automatic thing that I do when I try that trick the next day is my best repetition from the previous day. And then if I notice something, I can change it in the moment. I can progress in the moment. I can get better in the moment instead of it being like repetition, feeling like you're going nowhere. And then the next day, okay, now I kind of get it a little bit more repetition. So you can feel and actually notice yourself getting better at the thing in the moment, which is a major difference between semen retention and not being on semen retention. Because most of the time, yes, you can make adjustments, yes, you can make changes, but they don't stick usually. And you have to really like practice it and really embed it in order for it to stick. Whereas with semen retention, it'll stick very quickly, right? It'll stick very, very quickly. And it'll even be to the point where your body will almost try to progress you further than your mind is ready for. If you're used to being in a normal, I keep saying a normal state, but if you're used to being in a non-semen retention state, right? If you're used to releasing all the time and being in that lowered state, you'll notice the difference. You'll feel the difference. But yeah, so semen retention will amplify the amount of progress you can make and how fast you can make that progress. The next reason it can make you an elite athlete is because of you have higher levels of mental processing and output, right? So your mind, your brain is actually able to process information faster, hence why you're able to progress faster. And you're also able to have higher levels of mental output, meaning you will never go to this state of like default throwing the trick if you're learning a trick or if you're practicing your sport, right? You'll never go to your default technique, your unconscious technique, right? You will always be giving your 100% effort. Your mental output will always be putting you in a state where you are giving 100% output, right? Meaning you will be able to naturally and more easily do your best instead of just doing what is unconscious technique, right? Instead of having to build unconscious and develop unconscious technique and make that so good that you have these skills that you can apply anywhere. Your mental output is to the degree that you are always 100% conscious, always in 100% effort. So maybe not 100% effort, but if you apply yourself, you will be in 100% effort. If you're in this state, however, you're able to do your actual best, right? So that the difference is when you're in a flow state and you're not on semen retention, you can't always access flow state. So it's almost like a luck-based thing. It's like, all right, if I get in a flow state, then I'll be able to do well. Versus your mental output is to a degree that you can basically access flow state at will, instantly, always, right? So as soon as you go to try a trick, or as soon as you're going to take a kick for soccer and you're just practicing, right? You will be able to do it from a place of flow state, which is where your technique is all synthesized into perfect technique, and synthesized by your awareness and your consciousness, right? How aware you are of this moment, what is happening right now. And so you're able to access this flow state more effortlessly, more easily, and consistently, right? It's not something you have to bet on. It's something that you know you can access as soon as you get into that zone, as soon as you get into this focus state, right? And that is a major advantage, a major key, right? Because you're not practicing at, your baseline, which is a little bit below your true baseline, right? You're practicing at what you consider to be your current optimal performance, which is why you're able to develop so much faster. Because when practice doesn't make perfect, practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? So what does that mean? That means that when you're practicing, but you're actually a little bit below your baseline, you're practicing bad technique, right? But if you're able to practice at your optimal performance or at this flow state level, you're able to practice perfect technique, meaning that's what then eventually becomes your unconscious competence, right? So unconscious competence means without having to think about it, your body and your brain knows how to do the thing. So teaching yourself to have this unconscious competence, but with your ideal form, your best and most optimal performance, will help you a lot more than if you're training shitty form, but then hoping and betting on a flow state in order to synthesize it into something that can be applied to the game if it's soccer, or, if you're learning a trick for snowboarding, right? Actually applying it to doing it in a competition, right? And then so the last thing is thinking and moving faster. So like one of the basic reasons why semen retention is so good is because in the moment, if you're in a soccer game or if you're snowboarding, things happen quick when you're snowboarding too, right? So in the moment, you're able to think and then react faster, right? You have much faster reaction times, right? You have much faster analysis of the situation as well. So you're able to read the play sometimes before the play's even happening. And a lot of people think like very elite level athletes get this skill, but everybody can access it with enough awareness of what's going on, right? The reason athletes like this can access a skill like reading plays before they happen is because they are so acutely aware of what's going on right now in this moment, and so acutely aware of how the game flows normally, right? So they've just done the repetitions to learn how the game flows, and they have the awareness to be able to see and predict how the game's going to move, right? With semen retention, it basically will just amplify this effect, amplify this skill, and if you're not somebody who has this skill already, it'll give you access to this skill because your brain will allow you to think and analyze way faster and therefore react way faster. And so you'll be just slightly ahead of the game in a lot of cases, which is very, very good and a very important thing to have. And with snowboarding, it's extremely important to have because not having this ability, not having a fast reaction time, can be the difference between injury and walking away. So this is a very important aspect, but it is very like small and kind of like a basic thing. It just increases your ability to react and think in the moment. And it increases the speed at which you can do this, as well as the accuracy of this analysis. So the power of semen retention in building skills. So we're going to talk about specifically how you can use semen retention to start building and developing skills. So training and developing your skills. With semen retention, when you are training and you are developing your skills, like I mentioned before, you can notice and make this progress much faster. You can progress yourself much more in the moment. But also the persistence at which you're able to work is much different. When you're normally training, you start off with a lot of energy. You start off very intense, very focused. And then as you get into this training bout, this is when your energy typically starts to taper off, right? And as your energy starts to taper off, your repetitions might get weaker and weaker. However, with semen retention, you're able to keep a level of persistent energy throughout the entire training block. Meaning, as you get deeper into the training block, it's not that you start to get more exhausted. For me, I actually get more into it. It gets more intense the longer I go, right? The more my body is warmed up, the more my body is in a flow state, the more my mind is aware of the movements and the motions that I'm working on, right? So, therefore, as I get deeper into it, my energy starts to increase slightly because I'm telling my body like, hey, I'm working, like I'm doing this shit. So It increases my energy slightly because I have access to that energy, right? Most people can't do that only because of the fact they don't have access to the energy they need to do that. So my energy increases, my awareness increases, and I start to get more and more inspiration for more tricks, and I start to develop them on deeper levels, right? The longer I get into this block. And so being able to sustain these longer training blocks, and not just sustain longer training, but sustain longer training blocks where I'm actually at my optimal performance, means that I can progress way faster than somebody who's going to get tired halfway through that same training block, right? And I'm not saying I don't get tired. I'm not saying I don't have exhaustion. I'm saying that I have such a persistence in my energy that I don't get hit with that exhaustion until I'm done and I'm actually in a rest period. Once I'm resting, then my body lets me know, like, hey, that was good, we liked that, but we're gonna need a minute, right? And it doesn't affect you in the moment, but your body still lets you know, like, hey, we just used a bunch of energy, let's relax, let's rest now. But you don't get this fatigue in the moment that blocks you from finishing the work block or the training block. And that's what's really key, is because you can develop your skills so much more and so much faster when you can just spend 2 hours focusing on refining this skill and focusing on making it better and better and better. And the next thing is deep flow state and effortless access to it, right? So I talked about this in the last section of the video. This deep flow state that you can access is different from, what most athletes would call being in the zone, or what most people would consider to be a flow state, because it's not just a quick flow state you lock in for a minute. It is this deep state of focus and flow, right? You no longer have your mind blocking you from doing the things you need to do, and you are just effortlessly moving through the motions of doing the performance at your optimal level, right? So this is hard to explain. That's why it might be confusing the way I'm wording it, but it's very difficult to explain this state. It is basically a flow state, but amplified, and one that doesn't feel like it's going to go away the moment you get distracted, right? It's one that will stick for as long as the game goes on, right? Let's say in a 90-minute game of soccer, most athletes might experience 4 or 5 different flow states, if not more, but in short blocks and short periods in order to lock in for a specific play. This type of flow state is one that you will maintain throughout the entire 90-minute block. And these little lock-in bouts that most athletes would get are literally just access to a much deeper flow state, right? So you're in this flow state the whole time, and then you can just go deeper into it as you need to. And then you can come out of it, but you still maintain this level of clear focus. You don't then get distracted, right? And this is a major advantage no matter what sport you're playing, right? Because now you have access to levels of focus and flow that most do not, right? And the other thing is you have effortless access to it. So what I mean by effortless access is not you'll just get flow state whenever you want, right? But when you create the right environment for flow state, you can just get into a flow state. It doesn't take it doesn't take a very specific level of, everything has to be optimized for a flow state to happen normally, but it doesn't take much of this. It just takes you applying effort, keeping your focus on something, and then naturally you will just enter into this flow state, right? And then you'll be able to maintain it for as long as you keep your focus on the work or the training, right? And this is not just a major advantage, but at the same time, it makes it so much more enjoyable, because now I'm doing the sport that I love, but I'm always in a flow state. My mind isn't blocking me from doing it at the level I want to do it at anymore. And so now my mind isn't blocking me from doing all the things I want to do. And so I'm able to just effortlessly, but obviously with effort applying to developing these skills, but effortlessly enter this state where I can develop and build these skills, right? The next thing is unlocking intuitive levels of awareness and performance. So when you train on semen retention and you do this over a long period of time, you start to develop this intuition for certain things, right? This just natural awareness of the flow of the game if you play soccer or any other type of sport, or just how your board moves and operates, how the snow reacts to you riding it as a snowboarder, right? So you learn to have this level of intuition and deep awareness of yourself, your body, and the movement of things around you, right? Within the specific sport that you play, just by practicing it. And so you have this level of just natural awareness of what to do, where to move, how to position yourself on the field, right? You just have this natural level of intuition. And most athletes can develop this over time, right? Most athletes have this level of intuition. But obviously with semen retention, it gets much deeper. You have a clearer awareness, a clearer intuition, but also you can actually develop it a lot quicker, right? So you can develop it as an athlete who's never played the sport before if you just apply yourself for a few months to a year, right? While on semen retention, obviously. And so you unlock this level of intuition that allows you to just move more effortlessly and always be able to move exactly where you need to move to without having to think so much about it, without having to analyze so much and stress yourself out about it. You just know. You're like, all right, here. This is where I got to be. This is where I got to go. This level of intuition and awareness is going to set you apart because you will have an intelligence of the sport, of, if it's soccer or if it's snowboarding, like the trick that you're doing, you're going to have such a level of intelligence about that trick that most people will not be able to compare, right? Most people will not be able to compete whatsoever. You will be so much quicker reacting to your defender than any other athlete on the field that defender will just have no chance because you know exactly what move to make to throw him off. You didn't think about it. You didn't watch his plays before and just make a guess based on that. It's just you knew he's probably going to step right here. I'm going to cut, right? He's probably going to make an extra step right here. I'm just going to cut. But having a skill like this in your toolbox, right, as an athlete is going to absolutely set you apart because to be able to read the play is one thing, but to be able to know exactly how to move through the play to get to where you want to be, right? Make a goal if that's the game you're playing, if it's soccer. This will basically set practice, training, diet, everything aside, right? All you need is to trust your intuition. All you need is to trust this flow and keep and maintain this awareness, and you can absolutely excel. And then you combine that with a lot of training, a very good diet, and all the other tools, and you have a basically unstoppable athlete. You have an elite level athlete. And the last thing is the transmutation of raw skill into elite performance and ability, right? So you, on semen retention, can take your raw skill, right? What is just raw skill, raw talent, and you can transmute it using the process of transmutation, using the training and everything else applied. You can create elite levels of performance and elite ability, right? So an example of this is a natural process for athletes, right? They take what is a raw skill and they apply it in such a way that they're able to develop it into these elite levels of performance, right? But not all athletes take it all the way. With semen retention, you can boost how quickly this can happen and how fully it can happen, right? You can take what is just raw talent, raw skill, just anything that you have, right? For me, I have a level of natural ability as a snowboarder, right? This does not mean I'm a professional level snowboarder, but I have natural ability, right? Should I, and I am, but should I apply my semen retention and sexual transmutation to that skill? I can take what is just raw talent, right? Something that like, okay, I'm good at snowboarding, I could do it for fun every once in a while, to being truly the best in the world, right? By applying this sexual transmutation to my training, to developing my skills, to honing my skills, to becoming near perfect in them, right? And to apply it to my diet, to apply it to being consistent over time, and to consistently and constantly develop this energy and grow, right? I will be able to transmute it all into becoming an elite level athlete, right? That is the process. That is the transformation that is happening, right? I am undergoing a transformation from raw skill, raw talent to best in the world, right? That transformation is created and sublimated by the sexual energy, right? Sublimated might be the wrong word, but it's essentially you are purified by the sexual energy. You are refined by the sexual energy into what it is you're trying to become. You are transformed by it, right? And so by applying this process of transmutation and transformation to your sport, you can then take what is raw skill, raw talent, and turn it into elite levels of performance and ability. And so the last thing I have is just a couple of tools to ensure that you can use this practice fully and that you can apply it fully. The first thing is consistency, right? If you are consistently training and working out and working on your skill while practicing semen retention, you will continuously feel these benefits, right? You will continuously feel yourself increasing in skill. Your performance will keep getting better, right? But also, just by applying consistency, you will get better no matter what, right? You will get better no matter what. And then by combining that with the tool of semen retention and sexual transmutation, you will amplify your progress. You will make your progress compound over time. And you will be able to increase the rate at which you can get better, and you will also increase the amount that you can get better by. The next thing is diet. You want to maintain a clean diet. If your diet is fucked, your energy will be fucked, no matter whether you're practicing sexual transmutation or not, because your semen is created by the food that you eat. And so if you're eating shitty food, you're going to have low quality semen. And the semen is directly translated to the sexual energy in your body, right? It is the physical stored sexual energy. But when you are eating shitty food, that means the energy that you have access to is lesser, right? The ideal diet, the thing that you should absolutely be sticking to, is whole food diets, right? It does not have to be completely animal-based. It does not have to be carnivore. It does not have to be alkaline or keto or vegan, whatever the fuck. If you could tell, I don't really like vegan too much. I'm a meat eater personally. I like my meat. I like my vegetables. I like my fruit. Right? That's what I consider to be the ideal diet. A lot of steak. I eat a lot of steak and red meat. A lot of eggs. Chicken's great too. Fatty fish, wild caught fatty fish. And then fruits and vegetables, organic fruits and vegetables. And really, it might seem like, someone eating a diet like that is starving themselves. Really, truly, that is all that you need. And in fact, it's more than you need, right? When you are eating this kind of diet, you will actually feel good. You will feel healthy. You will feel full. You will have energy throughout the day. You'll be able to build muscle very easily. And it won't be, a lot of people bulk and get fat when they bulk. You don't need to get fat when you put on muscle. That's just brain dead bro science. You know what I mean? It's just something that people who don't understand their bodies do in order to make their bodies look a different way, right? When you understand how the body works, you can put on muscle without having to get fat, right? You don't have to make yourself unhealthy to get a healthy effect and a healthy benefit, right? Muscle is good for you. We need muscle. We want muscle. Fat is not always good for you. We don't really want fat. So why sacrifice our health to get something for our health, right? We can do the two in the same cycle, and that is just by keeping a clean diet, right? Making sure that your diet is clean, healthy, and full of all of the nutrients that you need. That's the other thing. A lot of people think like you should eat meat like 3 times a week or something like that. I eat steaks twice a day, and I eat eggs at least once a day, if not twice a day. If not steak, it's beef or it's chicken, right? You need to be eating a lot of protein. A lot of eggs are very good, and a lot of fruit. If you're an athlete, a lot of fruit. Fruit is important because that's going to be your main source of carbohydrates. We do not want to eat pasta. We do not want to eat breads. We do not want to eat this bullshit. We want fruit for carbohydrates, simple carbs, simple sugars, which are going to be the fastest acting. So if you eat a fruit, you will receive actual energy that you can apply to what you're doing well before you will get that energy boost eating a piece of bread. So having a clean diet, maintaining a clean diet will also help us to keep our minds clear so that lust won't take over at a certain point and eventually make us fall back, right? Because that is the other thing. Semen retention is a difficult journey. It's a difficult process. This video is really intended for those who already do it and just want to learn how to apply it to what they're doing. But for those who are struggling on semen retention, I have plenty of videos that will help you on that. But diet will help you to clear the lust and keep your mind clear and clean and focused. So that way you don't get distracted, you don't fall off. And the last thing is sexual transmutation. Sexual transmutation is the most important key. The only reason that any of what I just said in this entire video applies is because of sexual transmutation. Transmutation literally just means changing of energy, right? So you are transforming the energy from one state to another, from the state of lust and dense, heavy energy to the state of true sexual energy or creative energy, right? Sexual energy is truly creative energy. So you convert lust into creativity, and then you can apply that energy to what you're doing in your life, right? So this video obviously taught you how to apply it athletically, but you can also apply it to your business. You can apply it to your self-growth, your transformation. If you have a lot of mental health issues, you can apply it to developing better mental health. Whatever you want, you can apply it to that, and you can increase the benefits and results that you're able to get in that specific goal or that specific field. And so to do sexual transmutation, the way you do sexual transmutation is simply when you become aware of an abundance of sexual energy or lust in particular, you just move your awareness to it, you keep your awareness on it, and you allow it to move through the entirety of your body. You don't keep it stuck in the genitals, right? You allow it to rise up the spine and circulate through the entire body, right? And then one good way to help with this is the breath. Use the breath, using awareness and dissolving that lust. Not allowing yourself to get in your mind about lust and ruminating on it, but just focusing on the feeling of the sexual energy in your body that is causing that lust, and focusing on your breath in order to circulate that energy. There are plenty of breath work practices that I've covered and that I will continue to cover, and there are plenty of conscious practices that you can do as well. And then once you feel this energy circulating and flowing, you don't sit with it and allow it to go stagnant. You apply it to something else. So if you don't want to give in to lust, what you do is you take this energy and circulate it so that it can be applied to whatever you're doing actively, and then you go and do something actively, right? And the problem with things like NoFap and basic semen retention is you're repressing the energy, and so all of this tension makes you want to just do things, right? They go to the gym so much that, if you see people on NoFap, they're all just ripped up and jacked, which isn't a bad thing, but it shows that they don't have enough control over this energy because they're basically just working themselves to cope with the tension that's building. There shouldn't be tension when you're doing semen retention. You should actually feel much more relaxed on semen retention. Because of how much energy you have access to, things are so much easier to do that you don't need this tension to do them, right? So instead of suppression of it, we need to circulate it and use this energy in the thing we're doing, in the workout, in the training. And so we're not training to suppress the energy. We're working with the energy to then apply it to our training instead of applying it to lust. So that is all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, or you can DM me about them. I will answer DMs if they're just questions as well. But if you guys are interested in the Academy of Self-Mastery, or you guys want to work with me one-on-one in my coaching program, you can just go down to the description. Like I said, that first link is my Instagram, and just send me a DM, and I will get back to you guys. But that is all I have for you guys, and I'm out of here. Peace.